Okay, here we go. So hopefully y'all see the slides here. Let me know if anything's wrong. Um, just welcoming y'all to 2021. We got through 2020 and a pretty busy election, and again, 92% voter turnout in Sheboygan County, and I think we had something to do with that. So we can be proud of that. Our agenda tonight, we'll have a membership update. We've talked a little bit about a new fundraiser we had this year. We'll have updates from our committees, the treasurer's report. Melissa Prentice, who represents this congressional district on the People's Maps Commission, will be with us. And then again, she'll give us an update on that. And again, our featured speaker will be Tom Wegner from the Sheboygan County Government. So I think that'll be real interesting. We're trying to do a little bit more with local government this year. So first of all, the membership report, we're up to 107 members, and we can welcome among them 23 new members. So thanks to everyone for their participation and their donations. And we keep stressing, reach out to us if you'd like to participate or volunteer in some way, and we haven't gotten back to you on that. Just let us know. We're making an effort to contact new members, but sometimes things fall through the cracks. So we definitely want your participation and want to hear your ideas. So reach out if you don't hear from us. We have a new fundraiser this year. This is the first time we've participated in the Martin Luther King Day of Service, and we ended up having a full month fundraiser. So far it's raised $1,000, and our DEI committee kind of got behind this one. The information on the website says it's open through the 25th. It's actually going to be open through the end of the month. But again, so far it's brought in $1,000, and I think we can be pretty pleased with that for our first time out on this. So thanks to Rebecca Few and Amanda Groyle and Cheryl Andrus, who really put that together with the Sheboygan County Food Bank. Next, we've got a brief update from the Voter Access Committee, and they've been doing a lot, so I want to keep it brief, but it's not for lack of information here. They've been working with different municipalities, or all the municipalities in the county, to confirm the early voting days and hours and where the absentee drop box locations are. All this information is on our website now. They kind of update that for every election. You can share that on social media and make sure everybody knows. Back in, I guess it was last summer or late in the summer, we had a trilingual Safe Voting 101 flyer that went out to about 22,000 households through every door direct mailing effort. And it was a really nice flyer. It was in 3 languages, and that's been updated now to emphasize local elections, and it's going to be sent out to similar routes. But we had a real good response from that, actually. Then they've established 4 new subcommittees on the Voter Access and Registration Committee, because they've got a lot of good volunteers there and decided to split them up into different focus areas. So they've got a group that's working on voting for Sheboygan County jail inmates, a group that'll work on voter registration and events, then one focusing on election information, and then community outreach through voter education. So definitely, again, reach out to Mary Liz Town, who is the new voter access co-chair, along with Kristen Casey Booth. And if you don't know how to reach them, you can always just send an email to the League of Women Voters email address, which you'll find on the website. And you're also getting emails from it, so feel free to respond to that. Also on this slide, you'll see a couple of the flyers that the Voter Registration and Access Committee has put together, and those are on our website too, or Facebook and places like that, so we can share those with others also. Here's the Safe Voting 101 flyer that went out. You can see both sides of it, and again, there's some focus on local elections. So we've added the line "Local elections matter more," and then also tells when the February primary is and the April 6th election. From the Environmental Committee, we've got some new initiative too. There's going to be a book club. It's the first time we've tried that. And Amanda Groyle will be leading that. The book is A Terrible Thing to Waste. If you're interested in participating in that, probably don't have time to copy down this information here, but again, you can email the League of Women Voters website. You can also reach out to Amanda, and then we'll also have this up on Facebook. So you'll be able to find it there. And you can always reach out to me too if you have questions about that. Just want to briefly now give you some information on our treasurer's report and where we stand financially. Definitely in the black, things are looking good. Cheryl Andrus is on tonight. If you have any questions, I'd encourage you to talk directly to Cheryl. We won't go over the treasurer's report in great detail, but again, we do have sufficient money here to cover our dues for the next year. And we've been using donations for things like our Safe Voting 101 flyer and other materials, educational materials. So thank you all for your donations too, and for just spreading the word. So that takes us to Melissa now on the People's Maps Commission. So I'm going to try to turn this over to her. And you have to bear with me while I take a minute to figure out how to do that. Oops. Okay. Hang on. I'm just looking for her in the number of people on tonight. Aha, okay. I see you. All right, so I'm going to make you the host, Melissa.
Okay.
And you said you had some things you could share. I can also bring them up if you prefer.
Okay. Yes, it looks like I have, I've got the notification that I'm the host. I'll pause on sharing my screen for just a moment so I can answer the questions that you sent me. So hi, everyone. Thanks for having me back. It's good to be here with my fellow leaguers. And I'm happy to share some updates for you on the work of the People's Maps Commission and getting ready for the 6th district hearing, which will be February 25th. So Jane had sent me a couple of questions in advance that she thought would be useful for you all as you think about preparing for public testimony, if you want to do that. And so I'll just work through those questions. And then I had a little more information to share with you before turning it over to the main presenter this evening. But I'm happy to come back for future meetings and answer any questions you have. And you can always reach out to me via that wisconsin.gov email that's on the slide there. So the first question that Jane sent in was what types of things to include in your comments to make them more compelling and useful for the commission. And I would say anything that is specific to you or to your community and your experiences around gerrymandering. So things like non-responsiveness from your elected officials when you try to contact them, the inability to successfully run candidates against incumbents, that sort of thing. It may also be worth mentioning that the city of Sheboygan now is split into two different assembly districts, and that is new in the last 10 years. I know that people have pretty strong feelings about that. So those are the kinds of comments that are really useful to the commission. We do get a lot of comments from people who are really interested in the process of drawing maps and want to share their thoughts and opinions on that. And that's fine also, but know that we are working with a lot of experts in mathematics and statistics and things like that. So we have a lot of those resources already. What's really compelling about that public testimony is how gerrymandering in the state has impacted you as a voter, you as a citizen in your communities, and your ability to communicate effectively with your elected officials. Another question was, do the legislatures actually get copies of the comments sent to the Maps Commission? And that's sort of a yes and no answer. So they don't directly get those public comments, but we are tracking and documenting all of the public comments we receive, whether we get them in person at the hearings or in writing. And that we'll kind of condense all that information, and it will be part of the final report that we deliver to the legislature when our work is complete. So it won't be your exact verbatim comment with your name attached to it, but that information will be sent to the legislature. I was also asked if it matters whether you actually attend the virtual hearings or whether you view it later. It doesn't. Whatever is convenient for you is fine. I would say the main thing with actually attending that 6th district hearing is if you want to provide your testimony in person. And by in person, I mean over Zoom, of course. I will say that it doesn't matter how we receive that public testimony. We view it the same. So if you'd prefer to send that in writing, that's absolutely fine. But if you're able to attend to the hearing and provide that testimony in person, that's wonderful too. And then the final question, and this is where I'll get into looking ahead a little bit, is what else you all can do to support the work of the commission. So I will say, let your legislatures know how important this issue is, and keep telling them. We know that the final maps that we draw are going to be challenged in court. But we also want to make it clear that this is the will of the people. What the legislature does with that, to some extent, is out of our control, but the more that they hear from voters, the worse it really looks for them to ignore it. So that's a really important thing you can do. And then I will say that coming up, we're going to start looking at communities of interest, which, if you're into the kind of all of the lingo of redistricting and all of the things that we look at, you might be familiar with that. It's tied very closely to the Voting Rights Act. And the idea is that there's a requirement that we have to meet to preserve communities of interest as we take into account how we draw the maps. So that could be ethnic, racial, or economic groups, but it can also be something like a university campus or an important watershed. The idea being that those sorts of things that unite a community, that would be important for them to be able to select an elected official to represent those interests. So the People's Maps Commission has recently contracted with the Metric, Geometry, and Gerrymandering Group. They've worked with a number of other states on redistricting, so you might be familiar with them. It's headed by Moon Duchin, who is a statistician at Tufts University, and she's met with us a couple times. Really fantastic work that they're doing. And they have a really great tool, and this is where I'm going to share my screen with you, so you can see what this looks like. Let's see. It's called Districtor, and it basically gives folks the opportunity to draw communities of interest using a map tool. And then what we will do is take all of those maps that we collect from around the state and use that to help us decide how we draw district boundaries. So I'll give you a little preview of what that might look like. So Districtor is the tool. It's very easy to use. We're going to be working with grassroots organizations like the Fair Maps Coalition, as well as voting rights groups like League of Women Voters, to help get the word out about this. And that will be coming in the next, I would say, within the next 2 weeks, 2 to 4 weeks or so, we'll be doing some of that community outreach. So what this does is really put the tools of redistricting into the hands of voters. So it's pretty simple. I'll just give you a quick little demo. So we want to draw a community of interest, and you'll see we get a map of Wisconsin, and if we zoom into Sheboygan, we can select based on census tracts or wards. And what you'll do is you'll just come in and use the brush tool, and you'll literally just highlight the areas that you think are an important community of interest. You can do this as an individual, or, you know, as a league chapter, you can come up with some maps. Once you decide what the boundaries are, you would briefly describe it and then submit it. And when we finish with this outreach portion, what we'll do is take all of those community of interest maps and kind of overlay them, and we'll get fuzzy boundaries around each of them, and we'll see what are the sort of common communities of interest people have identified, and that will help us in the decision-making process. So I'm going to stop sharing and move back over here. Okay. So again, that will be an outreach effort where we'll work with some of those community groups on the ground to get the information out and also train people on how to use Districtr. So that would probably be a great time for me to come back to speak to the league chapter about this work, and maybe even do, I know we talked at one point about doing a league TV segment. That would be a really good opportunity to do that as well. So are there any other questions for me before I turn this back over to Jane? Any questions about the upcoming hearing?
I have one. How do we sign up for that hearing, or how do we, is there a link to that, or?
There is. I think actually the press release just came out yesterday, but in that slide, there's a link to the People's Maps Commission website, and you can sign up to provide testimony from there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a question also.
Sure.
I'm wondering, I've heard other communities in the state have put gerrymandering referendum on the ballot and have won, or something like gerrymandering. I'm not sure, redistricting or something. I'm wondering if, when Sheboygan County can get something like that on our ballot. Do you know what I'm talking about? Or
I'm not sure of the answer to that. I do know that most of those referendums have been driven by the Fair Maps Coalition.
oh,
And they don't, really what they are is a chance for voters to express in an official way the importance of fair maps. There's not really any action that can be taken based on those referendums, but it is still powerful because based on the ones that have been voted on already, I think it's like somewhere between 70 and 80% of voters support fair redistricting. So I don't know how we go about doing that in Sheboygan. Perhaps someone else in the meeting knows. But that is outside of what the Fair Maps Commission is doing.
okay, thank you.
Is there a way to find out? Do you have any place I think that's a really good point that she made. Is there any way to find out how we might go about it, or can you point us toward who we would talk to, or does anybody know who to talk to dig into that further?
My understanding is they've been county referendums.
Okay. So if they're a county referendum, who do you call about a county referendum?
Well, I will say we've got Thomas Wegner on tonight. He may be able to give us some information on that. He's with the county board.
This is Luann Burton, and I would add that you can always contact the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin or check their website, because there's a bunch of local leagues in Wisconsin that have done work on this, and I'm sure they'd be happy to share with how they got that done.
I do. And it's good to hear your voice, Luann.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm eating my dinner while we listen, so that's why my video's on.
Okay, well, anything else from anyone else? If not, we'll introduce County Board Supervisor Tom Wegner.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I just want to tell everyone a little bit about you, Tom, if you don't mind. He was first elected to the Sheboygan County Board on April 1st of 2008. Prior to that, he served as a City of Plymouth alderperson. And now that he's been on the county board, he's served on the law, transportation, finance, and executive committees. He's currently on the finance committee and is vice chair of the transportation committee. He's also active in the Wisconsin Counties Association. And I think he had a fair bit to do with the referendum or the resolution in Sheboygan County on fair maps. And he also helped us with our resolution for the League of Women Voters 100th anniversary.
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, I can certainly answer those questions that were asked earlier too. I'll get to that at some point. If I don't, please remind me. It wasn't in my prepared statement. I would just add that, and I appreciate the introduction, I served as chair of the county board, ending my 4 years in this past April. And we have term limits on our elected leadership positions. And I was vice chair for 4 years before that, and that's your limit. We're the only county board that I'm aware of in the state of Wisconsin, and there are 72 counties that have term limits on their elected leadership. It's worked for us, I think, and Vern Koch now is the new chair. He took over in April. I handed over the gavel, and he's serving his first 2-year term. He's from the city of Sheboygan. Yeah, I think we can go right to that. I've got that short video now, and it gives you a little bit of an overview of county government, I think, faster than I could give it.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. Melissa, I'm not sure if you need to give me permission to do that.
I don't know. Let me see.
Maybe I can change.
Am I still the host? I'm not sure how to change that.
I think so. Go to my picture and there will be 3 dots in the upper right corner.
Okay.
And one of those should, I think, says make host or something like that.
Ah, there we go. Okay, that should do it.
Okay. I'm going to bring up a video here, and I hope that I'm able to get it. Okay. Working on it. Now, hopefully you'll hear the video with this. Or the audio, I should say. Can't hear it. Okay, I'm going to stop that quick. There's a way to fix that. I just need to find it. Sorry, folks. I've made it work before. There we go. Okay.
There are 72 counties in Wisconsin, keeping together the fabric which makes our communities great places to live, work, and raise a family. While we know what county we live in, most of us don't know what counties do. Think about your day so far. Did you get to where you are on a state highway or a county road? That road was maintained by the county. If it snowed last night, guess how the road got salted and cleared? That's right. A county snowplow was out there working for you. Whether you realize it or not, your county is part of almost every milestone in your life. The Register of Deeds provides us with birth and death certificates. When you bought your home, the Register of Deeds recorded the sale. Getting married? You'll need to stop at the county clerk's office to make it official with a marriage license. Have you voted? The county clerk oversees all elections. Counties also play an important role in economic development by encouraging new investment in our communities. This investment results in new jobs and a higher quality of life for our citizens. Counties do lots of other important things too. Have an emergency? The 911 dispatch center is run by your county. And county sheriffs provide law enforcement and operate the jails. Counties also operate the state court system. County health departments protect public health and make sure our communities stay healthy. Counties are responsible for the places you love to go, like county parks, airports, and zoos. And counties help care for many of our most vulnerable citizens. The Human Services Department looks out for our children, the elderly, and people with disabilities, and administers state and federal aid programs. Counties also help farmers through conservation efforts and work to keep our lakes and rivers clean. So even though you may not be aware of it, counties touch nearly every aspect of your life. What may be even more surprising, however, is what a bargain county services are. While we all know the feeling of opening up our property tax bill a few weeks before the holidays, did you know counties account for less than 20% of the average property tax bill? That's right. Less than 20 cents on every dollar you pay in property taxes goes to fund the services which make Wisconsin such a wonderful place. The state relies on counties to provide the best state services efficiently and at the lowest possible cost to taxpayers. So that's the county story. Want to learn more? Get to know your county elected officials at your county's website. Check out a meeting of your county board. It's open to the public and held at your local courthouse. Or visit the Wisconsin Counties Association at www.wicounties.org. Counties, helping to make Wisconsin great.
Okay. All right. It's a nice
Okay.
video.
We good?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Okay, thanks, Jane. Thanks for getting that on there. The narrator there was Mark O'Connell. He's the executive director of the Wisconsin Counties Association, which I serve on that board. I represent actually part of eastern Wisconsin beyond Sheboygan County. So just some things about the county board. Some of this you're going to know, maybe some you won't. They're elected every 2 years. We currently have 25. Prior to 2012, we had 34. And then after the census, we reduced it to 25. And it's really a legislative body. It meets Monday. We elect our own leadership. If you think of the chair of the county board, although obviously much less important, it would be similar to the House of Representatives, and the chair would be similar to the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, because you're elected by the members. And as I said, it's a legislative body, really. People who go to county board meetings often wonder, well, it looks all cut and dried and there's not a whole lot of discussion sometimes. And I understand why people could think that. Really much of the heavy lifting is done in committee. And normally almost all of our issues go through 2 committees. So by the time it gets to the county board, 7, 8, 9, as many as 10 county board supervisors have weighed in at the committee level. And, you know, if it's been 10-0 at the committee level, and you can attend those and speak at that point too, as a county board member, it's pretty hard to get something overturned on the county board floor, in all honesty, if it's passed two committees with overwhelming support. Usually they've done their due diligence, hopefully, and the issue's been vetted, and then it goes to the county board, and it frankly can be rather quick. And I realize to the public, it looks like everything's a backroom deal, and I don't believe that is. We have 9 committees. Most members are on 2. You're appointed by the chair. When I was chair, I did that. People always have their favorites, and that's always a tricky thing to do because you can't put 12 people on the finance committee, which is one that a lot of people like to be on. There's only 5 spots. So that's just the way it works. Currently, we have 7 women on the county board. I thought you might be interested in that. I'm sure that's the highest percentage and probably the highest raw number of women that have ever served on the county board in Sheboygan County ever. I'm pretty safe. I haven't seen statistics to contradict that, so I'm pretty sure that's the case. I'm very proud of the fact that I appointed 2 of them, not just because they're women, but because they were great members, and they bring a lot to the board and to the committees, and a great perspective, and you want some different perspectives on the county board. The county itself has 850 employees. It's one of the bigger employers in Sheboygan County. We have 19 departments, over 200 programs. Budget's $151 million. We have the big 4, as we like to refer to them, usually the big 3 plus 1. Health and Human Services, which has a $39 million budget. The Sheriff's Department has a $22 million budget. Transportation is $20 million. And then Rocky Knoll, and most of that money does not come from the county. I think we're a little under $1 million in support for Rocky Knoll. That is not a required service that we do. Not all counties have nursing homes or assisted living, which we do. And their budget is $14 million, but as you know, most of that money comes from private pay, Medicaid, et cetera. So there's a lot of flow through money there. Just to talk about Health and Human Services a little bit, they have about 200 employees. That's right down on 8th Street. A few years ago, we really improved that building. I think we made it a lot nicer for the clients to come in and for the staff to work. It's still an old building. You can't do everything with it, but I think we improved it. That's where there's a lot of social workers. You know, the state of Wisconsin has all these programs, but it's the counties that really do the heavy lifting and do the work. We deliver the services, and these people deliver the services in that area, and there's lots of programs. The one thing about Health and Human Services is whatever rules they're working under, they change. They constantly change because either the feds or the state are changing things constantly with the intention, I believe, to improve, or maybe in some instances simply save money or be more efficient, which is being more efficient is wonderful. But it's just constantly changing. Matt Strittmacher is our head of Health and Human Services right now. He came to us from La Crosse. He does a wonderful job, as do many, if not most of our county employees. About a couple of years ago, we put on an additional attorney because we felt we needed to get more of these court cases in what is called the termination of parental rights. And it sounds kind of tough when you're trying to terminate a parent's right, but we felt we needed to get some of these through the court system faster because it was in the interest of these children. Obviously, just one example, if dad's not around and mom unfortunately has a addiction issue and it's serious, that's not a real good situation, or vice versa, for the child to be raised in. So at some point you have to remove children from the home. It's not something you really want to do, but our people know they have to do that, and they do it, and we need to get through the court system because you just can't do it without going through that type of system. And that's an expense we added that we thought was important a few years ago. The Sheriff's Department, our sheriff is Corey Raisler. Most of our departments are run by appointed people, but he's an elected position every 4 years. There's about 200 employees there. Are obviously out and about in the county, on the county roads, et cetera, and the state highways and I-43, and upholding the law and answering calls. We also operate dispatch. I'm going to say it must be about 6-7 years ago, we combined the dispatch, or basically took over from the city of Sheboygan what they were doing. Prior to 6 or 7 years ago, if you lived in the city of Sheboygan, or if you were just in a car accident, you called on your cell phone or called into when you were in the city of Sheboygan, I would go first to the city of Sheboygan dispatch, and then it would have to be transferred to the county. Well, some of those calls were dropped, and it was a very inefficient system. So we combined that and upgraded our dispatch center at the law enforcement building, which is down on New York Avenue. And now the county does all the dispatching for those things in the whole county. At that time, we were just doing it for everybody but the city of Sheboygan. I think that's been an improvement. Something I think people are always surprised at, they know we operate jails, but I always say it's not like Andy and Mayberry. We have I talked to the sheriff just yesterday in preparation for this. We're going between about 250 and 275 prisoners in our jail. There's one on the south side, which is for the males. There's just 2 round buildings out there that you might see. They look a little unusual. And then the women and juveniles, and we have about 10 juveniles right now, are housed in the old courthouse. And of course, you have to keep the juveniles away from any adult prisoners, et cetera. And if you've been reading in the newspaper, there's been just a real mess up in Wausau where the juvenile detention is going on, and it continues. And they were supposed to have about 5 or 6 counties build smaller detention centers for juveniles and spread them out around the state. And they passed it through the legislature. This goes back to when Scott Walker was governor, and they haven't put a shovel in the ground yet, and they're still having challenges up there. And that's something, in my personal opinion, that we need to solve. I don't believe we have any of our juveniles in that, because we prefer not to put them in that situation. I think the judges feel that way. And also it's extremely expensive. Going to Harvard is cheaper than doing that. So we try and keep them locally for a lot of reasons. And like I said, we're at 10 right now. Our transportation department has about 90 employees. We're what we call a full service transportation department. We not only fix roads and plow roads and fix potholes, we actually build roads, and we do a lot of work for the towns and some for the villages, et cetera. We have a new transportation complex that we opened up on J and 67 in the town of Plymouth, real close to Rocky Knoll. We sold the old one on 23rd Street, which was, I think, dated back to the 1950s. And we sold that to Aurora Medical. And I don't think they've done anything with it yet that I'm aware of. I always tell people, if they want to know who's responsible for a road, if it has letters, that means it's a county road. If it's like A or EE or something like that. If it has numbers, it's a state road, like 23, 67, 42. And if it has an I in front of it, it's a federal road. But the idea is the feds really through the state, and the state hires us to plow and take care of the roads. You won't ever see a truck in Wisconsin that says Wisconsin Department of Transportation out there plowing. You will see county trucks out there doing that work because Wisconsin doesn't do that. If you go down to Illinois, you will see on their system, Illinois Department of Transportation plows, but not in Wisconsin. We also do work for the towns who hire us to do that type of work too. And then of course, in some of the town roads, the privates hire that. Rocky Knoll, around 170 employees. We're currently around 120 residents. Nursing homes are a little bit like schools from the standpoint, I don't think I mentioned that earlier, I was a teacher and then a elementary principal for many years, 33 years in Elkhart Lake before I retired. And then I did a little private school principal gig for 2 years. And the numbers matter on everything because that's how you get money into the system. We have a rehab center out there too, which is more short-term, obviously, people break a hip, et cetera. And those are non-mandated. Much of what I have told you before is mandated by the state of Wisconsin. We have to do that. Rocky Knoll is not. We used to own 3 nursing homes, and one was closed and one was sold, and we maintain Rocky Knoll as a county facility. Couple things I wanted to share with you. Did you know We do have committees. I know Jane, I think had talked to me about, there are citizen members on these committees. You don't have to be a county board member. Health and Human Services, I think, has about 3 members. And then PRACOM, which is really deals with the environment and things like that. They have, I believe, 1 member. So if you're ever interested in that, the person you should contact would be Elaine Kraus. She used to be Elaine Bosman, but she got married. She's the deputy administrator, and she will help you out. Her name and number and email is right on the county website. So Elaine Kraus would be the person you're interested in. Monarch Library is the library system that operates between a number of counties, and every 5 years they put a plan together. And I chaired that the last time, and I was on that committee two other times. And what that does is those of you who live in a township or a village that does not have their own library, you're able to use all the libraries, etc. But if you live in the city of Sheboygan, you pay for Mead Library through your city taxes. So if somebody lives in, say, the town of Wilson, and I mean, they're not going to charge them when they go to the library, but there is a tax that flows through the county. It's usually based on how many books are taken out, et cetera, so that people who live in a non-library community are paying some money for the libraries. And like I said, if you live in one of those non-libraries communities, you'll see that on your property tax. A fair amount of people don't know that UW Wisconsin, Green Bay, the property and the buildings are all owned by the county, as all the 2 years are when it was set up. So we maintain the buildings and the property. That's why when Bookworm Gardens went out there, and I know they're looking at an expansion, they had to go through the county to get permission to do that, because obviously we discuss these things with the administration at UW Sheboygan, but it is the county's final decision because it's our property. And I know they're looking at an expansion, and they did really a wonderful job out there. I'll just add that in there as a personal comment. Sales tax, some of you might remember in 2016, right when I became county board chair, one of my first acts was to raise taxes, which is always fun. You know, the beauty of being on Zoom is nobody can throw anything at you. You know, when you mention these things, I've spoken to, and nobody's ever thrown anything at me. I don't think any of you would either, but we raised a lot of money on the sales tax, and we put it all the roads and our transportation needs. So in 2019, we raised $10,400,000, and we shared $1.5 million with the municipalities. There's 28 municipalities, 3 cities, Sheboygan, Plymouth, and Falls, and then there's 25 other towns and villages who have their own government, and they were happy to get the shared. This last year, we were thinking March and April, we might lose a lot of sales tax money, but to many people's surprise, we raised $10,654,000, and it's not final yet. So that's over $250,000 more than we did the year before, even though there was a pandemic going on. And we're predicting that next year we'll raise about 11 million, and we're still sharing that with those 28 communities. We're the only county, I will say, in Wisconsin that shares any of that sales tax with their communities. Everybody else, it simply stays within the county budget. Our professional management, I'm sure you've seen his picture in the newspaper, et cetera, is Adam Payne. He's the county administrator. He has a number of statutory things that he is required to do, and certain powers before. One of the things, and it's the biggest thing that the county board does every year, is put together the budget. And it's Adam's job to meet with all these department heads, and certainly the county board is involved and all their committees involved, and put together a budget. And as I said, that's the most important thing we do every year. And once again, if you go to the county board meeting in November, the first Tuesday, when we pass it, you say, well, this looks all cut and dried. You took 3 minutes and nobody said anything. Well, that's because we've been doing it for 10 months. I always say, if the budget was passed on November 3rd, the planning for the next budget starts on November 4th. And really, if you do good budgeting, certainly in any public entity, you're really thinking ahead. And a decision you make one year can have a tremendous impact on something 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. Our finances are in very good shape. We have a good reserve fund, which we needed, and we were afraid we might have to use some of it this year, but we really haven't had to so far. But you keep that, and it also keeps our borrowing costs down, even though rates right now are very low. A couple other things, we put in a customs facility within this last year. There's a new building out there at the airport. It was about a $5 million project because the county owns the airport. We hire somebody, we have a manager out there, and then we hire somebody to really run the airport side of it. We did receive a $2.5 million grant for it. And Kohler was very much interested in this, as were some other companies, but they definitely were the main driver. And they are going to support these customs agents on a financial basis when they come in. Now, these customs agents are not out there all the time because they'd be twiddling their thumbs for long periods of time. But when somebody has a flight coming in, they know that ahead of time, and there are procedures in place where they can notify them, and then there can be an agent or agents out there waiting for the plane to come in. And obviously that avoids the plane having to stop in Appleton or Green Bay or Milwaukee or Chicago. And we'll see, we wanted it done by the Ryder Cup. And obviously with the delay, we definitely have it done in time for the Ryder Cup. And NASCAR will be a big event too. I'm not a big NASCAR fan, but that's out at Road America. And I think some people aren't really aware. I'm not, as I said, a big race car fan, but there's a lot of people who fly into our airport for those races. Tremendous amount of people who fly in. I had a finance meeting today. This is actually the third Zoom meeting I've done today. The first one was with the legislators. Then I had a finance committee meeting, and last year and this year now, our finance committee and the county board approved it. We have if you have late property taxes, it's a pretty onerous situation. You get a interest and you get a 0.5% penalty. That's 6% a year on top of the interest, which is high. And we've removed the penalty now for the last year and this year. I think the county board will approve that because we were concerned about the pandemic and how that was affecting some people. I will say we haven't had that much late as far as property taxes. Frankly, 2008, 2009, there were a lot of foreclosures. I'd walk into the county building and there's on the first floor, there's a bulletin board, and they ran out of space on the bulletin board for all the foreclosures. And, they haven't had sheriff sales and that after so long. And that was pretty sad to see. And there aren't near as many of those going on now. So hopefully that will happen. The courthouse, the state runs the court system. We have 5 judges, 5 circuit courts. They are state employees. The district attorney and his assistant district attorneys are state employees. And all the rest of the people who work in the courthouse, court reporters, et cetera, are all county employees. And about 2 years ago, I'm very proud of this. I'll be real honest. We put in courthouse security, and the 2 months after we put it in, we had, I think it was one of the top sheriff's department people came and spoke to the county board, and he had a big bin full of all the weapons that they had taken away or contraband from people. And it was just amazing. Frankly, some of them, I didn't even recognize that they were weapons because they disguise them and such. We had one lady who walked in the first week and she had a long coat on and she had a sword underneath it. That was a little questionable. And frankly, before we had metal detectors and that kind of security, she could have walked up into the courtroom. And unfortunately, with today's day, we have to be more careful about that. Fair maps, that came up a couple of years ago. We did pass, and it was a couple of years ago, it was when I was chair anyways. We passed a resolution supporting the fair maps, and for my voting at the Wisconsin Counties Association. We did not put it on a referendum, as some people have, and we chose to go this route, and we thought it was the way to go for a number of reasons, and I think it worked out. You may disagree with that. I fully understand that. That's it. Questions?
I have a question, Tom. I was looking at the budget graph, which I brought up. Thank you for sending that on. And I'm kind of curious with the courthouse expenses, where do those fall here?
Courthouse expenses, they would come under general government. Like I said, and that's a shared situation where the judges and the DAs and all that are paid for by the state. And then we pay, you know, the building heating and cleaning and all those other employees that are in there come under general government, I believe. Yeah, I think so. And some of it, I think there is some separation that comes under the, possibly come under the sheriff's department.
I have a question.
Oh, hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Tom?
I'm good. This is an easy question or is this a hard question?
I think it's going to be easy for you because it's something that you and I have talked about, but there are a number of department head level administrative positions that are elected that would seem to require a skill level that should be an appointed or hired position instead. Clerk of courts, the city clerk, the treasurer, I think register of deeds, those are all elected positions, correct?
Yes, they are.
And the state requires that of us, yes? It's a state mandate.
Yes, it is. It's by state statute. We have to, and one of the odd things about this, and some of this is my personal opinion, so this is not necessarily speaking for the county board. You know, some of them are partisan issues, are partisan positions too. And I find, frankly, even with the sheriff's department, it's just my personal opinion. I don't think it's a Democrat or Republican, especially some of those are being the treasurer or whatever. We have good people who do those things, but I don't see, but that's just the way it was set up in Wisconsin. And it is what it is.
So is there any movement afoot to change that at the state level? Or are there other counties that would prefer to be able to hire those important positions?
Sometimes I hear some discussion on that, but I think there isn't a lot of discussion, in all honesty. I'd be misleading you, yeah, especially right now. I mean, there are just, you know, with the pandemic, I'm not using that as an excuse. You can just tell that people are trying to get through certain things, and I don't see a lot of discussion of that at this point.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Thanks.
I'm also curious about the Fair Maps resolution. Did you have any opposition to that? Did anyone speak against that?
Well, when you're the county board chair, your job is to try and get every vote you can get. All right. And I'll be real honest about it. And I thought this was the best way for us to make a point, if, you know, because we had certainly people who wanted to make that point, and I understood that. We also had people who were opposed to it. And the problem, my partial problem with it, it's just simply advisory. I think your previous speaker put it close. I think there's value in it. I get that, but I refrained from doing a lot of voting on things that we didn't really determine by our votes. You can say, well, we're speaking, you know, for people, and we are. Every month we would get sometimes a laundry list of resolutions that were passed by county boards on all sorts of issues, you name it. Anything you can think of at times, and county boards would pass it. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I could name the counties on one side of the ledger and counties on the other side of the ledger, and they were sometimes pretty partisan. And that was fine. They could do what they wanted to do. But I think many of in previous county board chairs, and I think we've continued that, but that's certainly up to Vern, that we try and stay out of just passing things where we're just giving our opinion instead of things that we're really accomplishing. And I understand where people may disagree with that, but I think there's value in that, because I've seen county boards split apart over an issue that they really had no say over. That's just my view. And I know some of you don't agree with me.
This is Maeve Quinn, and I would just like to add on to the little bit of the discussion. I
Sure.
remember in 2019 when that vote came up before the county board, and I was really impressed that I believe 20 of the county board supervisors voted in support of
Yeah.
the proposal, and essentially was just agreeing that they would like for it to be a nonpartisan process to determine how our maps are created. And I thought the language was very clear, and I was impressed that 20 supervisors agreed. It did make me want to have further conversations with them, not because I was curious. And I just wish that we had local media that really allowed the public to really understand some of the conversations that happened at your level, because you have very, very robust conversations and not everyone's able to go online or
Yeah.
go in person to the meeting. So thank you for bringing it to the floor to discuss.
Well, thank you. And one of the reasons why I did that, just to follow up on what you said, was I thought we could get 20 votes like that. And if I did something a little differently, it was going to split us and the votes were going to be a lot less. And I thought that was kind of important. And it also allowed me to vote at the county association annual meeting with that point of view, representing my county. And I think that was the best way for us. I will have to tell you, because you raised it, I think I've been in elected office now. It'll be just about 19 years, 6 years on the city council. I was a school administrator, 13 years on the county board. I think it is sad that we don't have more local news and reporters. And I understand why. I understand what the economics are. I'm a big newspaper reader. I get 3 newspapers a day, which makes me a dinosaur, especially to my adult children. Because they all go online, and I go online too. But, I'll tell you, a good reporter who comes to our meeting, they know what's going on. I'll be perfectly honest. I think the Plymouth Review actually has done a better job, in the last number of years. They actually have a reporter there. I'm not going to bash anybody else, but that's there. But I'll tell you, a good reporter who comes to a meeting, they also know the person who 2 months ago said the opposite thing. And now they're playing to whatever. They see through all those issues. And I think the public is less served because of the lack of local news reporters. It's sad, but that's my personal opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think Kathy McNellis maybe wanted to ask a question.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Thanks, Tom. That was a really interesting presentation. I appreciate it.
Well,
So the county board chair appoints the Wisconsin Technical College board members, at least in most of the districts in the state. And so I have a couple questions. What process, when you were county board chair, or you're currently the county board chair, how do you go about deciding which candidates to appoint? And do you think that should continue to be the process? I know we have a former LTC board member here tonight, which is awesome. Hi, Vicki. But I'm just wondering, or do you think they should be elected positions?
It's interesting. I don't think I raised that issue. Did I? Did I mention that in my presentation? No. I'm really glad you did. That is something a lot of people don't know, that it's the 4 county board chairs. I always chaired the meeting as county board chair because Sheboygan's the biggest for LTC. Then Jim Bry from Manitowoc County is the northern part. Alice from Calumet County. And I'm trying to think of his name now, from Ozaukee County, because there's a little bit of it. So the 4 of us would meet. I believe Fox Valley, which is up by Appleton, their board members are chosen by school board members. I have a mixed feeling on that. I like to think we've done a good job, but I understand why people could say that that'd be better if that was elected, like school board members are, county board members are, or whatever. But I will tell you this, all 3 of the people I worked with, and I'd like to include myself in that, worked really hard to do the right thing in electing members of the LTC, because we think it was so important. I will also tell you the state has a number of rules, and they're good rules. They have to have somebody from the northern county, so Manitowoc. They have to have somebody from Sheboygan County. They have to have diversity, which includes women. And they also have to have diversity when it comes to race. So some of that would be hard to put on a ballot, if they were going to continue that. I would just point that out. But yeah, you raised a good point.
Let me just build on that. I served on the LTC.
Did I make
board.
anything up or did I?
Nope, you were right on target. And this does come up ever so often, that it should be an elected position, that the trustees for the technical college board should be elected. But let me tell you something from my perspective as a community volunteer who participated. You get, because of the way we currently do it, you are able to draw people from the community who have no political agenda, have no place they want to go. They purely want to be a part and improve the education system in the county. And if they had to go through that election process of raising money, running a campaign, they wouldn't do it. So you would get a completely different type of person with, and I'm not,
I
slamming
hear you.
people who run for office, but
No,
this process, like you said, really does embrace diversity, and has since the technical college system was set up in the early 1900s. And it also really draws in people who are basically committed to education and for their community.
Well, Vicki, I don't think I ever met you, but those were excellent points. And I would also add a school superintendent has to be on there too, which I think has value.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up, Kathy.
Yes. Anybody else?
Looks like John has a question.
Yes, John Binder here in Plymouth.
I think I know you, John.
Yeah, hi, Tom. Tom is my supervisor. And 2 years ago, I did contact him and talk with him about, fair maps and having the county do something as far as adding to the many voices that we already have in Wisconsin that want fair maps. And I really appreciate the fact that he had that happen as far as the county board is concerned. But one thing I want to remind everybody of, and I write a lot of letters to the editor on this issue. And the last one I wrote, I mentioned that after the November election, we had more counties taking a position. We now are at 54 of Wisconsin's 72 county boards, including Sheboygan, of course, have passed resolutions or referendums. And if you take a look at how many citizens those boards represent, it's 80% of the citizens in Wisconsin. So we do have a lot of voices that want to see a change. And I have a question for Tom. You had mentioned that you came off of a Zoom meeting today with legislators.
Yes, I did.
Have you talked to legislators about this?
I have. I will be, pardon?
What kind of response do you get from them?
I told them what I was doing when I did it too. And I hate to speak for anybody else, that's kind of tricky. I will just say I detected a certain less than enthusiasm towards it. Is that fair? My mother always taught me to be careful in certain things. I just, in fairness to them, and I get along with our legislators really well. That does not mean I agree with them on everything by any means, but I have a role there to play, and it is to represent Sheboygan County. And sometimes I have personal opinions that are very different, but I always have to remind myself, and I think I did a pretty good job on that, is I'm here to represent the county, and that's why I'm there. That's why you hopefully voted for me, John. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more question, if that's okay. I thought somebody else would bring it up and nobody has. So Tom, do you feel that the county, or actually all Wisconsin counties, are receiving adequate direction and resources from the state with regards to our COVID response, both in contact tracing and vaccinations?
Well, I'll tell you, I was on a Zoom meeting. I go on a lot of Zoom meetings, and even though I'm no longer chair, I either get dragged into them or because of my other roles on these different boards. And I did hear the deputy secretary for Health and Human Services at the state level. I'll just, I am who I am. I'm just going to tell you, I mean, she was so young. And I'll be honest. but was she smart? And I thought she did a good job. I thought she did a good job. And I think our local people think we're getting it. I know people are frustrated with the lack of vaccines and, and the different things, frankly, at either the federal level or the state level. I think they're starting to get their act together a little better from what I can tell at the federal level. And I'm hoping, it's just my opinion, I'm not representing the county on this. I don't know about you, but I actually have a vaccine set up tomorrow at St. Nicholas, and they are out there, Aurora's out there, and they're setting it up. And I think they're going to get, hopefully, people vaccinated. They just got to get enough vaccines. So, but in answer to your real question there, and I just stated a bunch of opinions, which are mine, I think so. I think they feel they are. I think that's fair to say. It's been tough.
Okay, well, I just want to make one last call for questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and speak up. If you have a question or a comment.
I have one more, but I don't want to, I've had my moments. I don't want to take it from somebody else.
Go ahead, Maeve.
I was just curious from your perspective of your county board in light of the state Senate deciding on Tuesday to, repeal the mask mandate. And of course, the state assembly is going to be meeting tomorrow. And I really was very impressed with the public service announcement that the Sheboygan County put together with Adam Payne and business leaders and teachers and doctors. I'm sure you're sort of waiting to see, what happens, but I just as an individual, I think communication is so challenging. And when the messaging of how to be healthy and how to be safe keeps changing, it really makes it hard for citizens to know who they need to listen to. And I think the county health department has done such an admirable job. And I would really like for our elected officials to provide support in sharing the communication of how to keep healthy and safe, that it stays clear. And I just think what's happening this week is making things very unsettling. And I know this adds more challenge to your plate being on the county board, because so that's it.
No, I appreciate that. I will pass that on. I think they have, and I think we're going to continue doing that. We're going to emphasize that. We got all these people involved, and I think people should wear masks. I think we're pretty clear on that. It's the evidence. Now they're saying 2 masks, is out there, and the social distancing, and, and I think I appreciate that. And I think we're going to continue to do that and maybe have to ramp that up a little bit from the standpoint of even telling people that's, still important to do. We heard a young lady, if you don't mind, just to digress a minute, she spoke at our December county board meeting. She used to be an employee of the county. Now she works for the city of Sheboygan. I can never understand. No, I'm teasing. And anyways, she had been in Iraq as a soldier, and one of her points, and it just stuck with me, and I can't get it out of my head. And I think it's a good point. She said, when we were given notice, my group, that we were going to leave in a couple weeks, some people let their guard down. And that was the worst thing to do. And some of them got killed or injured because they let their guard down. And I think as we start to see some hope with the vaccine and see a little bit of light at the tunnel, the last thing to do is let our guard down now. We've done some good things. All it takes, you can be good for 250 days and do one day wrong. And unfortunately, there's some bad things. So yeah, not the time to let our guard down. Thank you.
Go off of that.
Sure.
Does the county board, they're going to be kind of staying on their same messaging though, and not look at a local mandate? Is that a local mask mandate?
I can't speak for everybody in that, but if you were going to ask me what I think will occur, yes, that's what I think will occur. I don't think we'll do a local mandate. One of the problems with the local mandate, even the problem with the state mandate, although I wish they'd left it in, is enforcement. And, it's not going to be, but I think that's what we're going to do, if you want to know what I think, but not my total call. Sure.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm just going to pull up one more thing that you gave us or sent for us, Tom. I have the state of the county
Right.
here, and this was sent out to everyone in our chapter by an email, which sometimes they end up in, promo folders or spam folders, but usually if you can search LWV Sheboygan in your email, they'll pop up. And it included the budget graphs, which we had up earlier, and then this just 2-page state of the county document summary. So that'll give you a little more information. It's probably a lot of the information Tom already gave us, but
Yeah.
another resource for you. And then I was looking at the county website the past couple of weeks, and I noticed there's some new videos on there, and there's some
Yes.
information about the different communities. It's really, I thought it was pretty nice.
Well, thank you. I will pass that on. I know they're working on improving that and getting it, so that's good. I just wanted to say before I end here, or you, I want to thank you and all of your people for what you do for voting. I can't think of anything more important. And I'm not just saying that. I don't believe in false praise. You get, 2 things you do from my point of view. You encourage voting and voting for everybody, and also information. And those are 2 wonderful things. And I mean that.
Well, thank you. I think I can thank you on behalf of everyone here. Okay, well, if there aren't any other questions, did anybody have a question or comment unrelated to Tom's presentation or anything else they wanted to share with us? If not, I think I'll thank Tom for coming, thank Melissa for participating. We do have Tom's contact information. I can bring that up for you, but you'll also find it, of course, on the website. And there we go.
And I do return my calls.
Yes, I know that for a fact.
Okay, well, I appreciate your help.
There's his email address and phone number, but as I said, you'll find it on the website. Okay, well, I guess with that, I'm going to close out the meeting, not hearing any objections to that.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Tom. Thank you, Melissa. Good night, and thanks for attending.